Today we have an elderberry tea because I need all the antioxidants I can get. I will address this later. We all feel it. There's a sudden need for third spaces, the endless craft creation pop-ups, parties where strangers can come and simply just read together. These beautiful collective spaces are arising because there is an unmet demand. And even though we all love a good hee-haw when we sit down to eat or just need to watch something in transit or just want to relax, there's certainly content fatigue on a mass scale. Most creators I know don't particularly enjoy making it. Most people I know don't particularly enjoy consuming it. It's proportionate to how much time they spend with a screen. So what are we doing? As I do on many days, I started the day feeling a bit overwhelmed. And my first instinct, even after many weeks of being very conscious with my digital decisions, trying to dopamine detox as much as I can in favor of my real life relationships, my instinct was to either open up Instagram or open up YouTube and check for comments, which is so silly because why would an overload of information be eased at all with more unnecessary information? Being addicted to content is nothing new. I think we all kind of have this to some degree, unless you are one of those wizard warlocks who decided to distance from the first place, in which case you're super cool and you probably have some really niche skill set like woodworking or something, and I admire that. Jonathan Haidt just put out a great piece on this through The Atlantic, even though he's been talking about this for years, as have so many other people. But the point is that we could all do with a bit more boredom. It is no coincidence that so many of us suddenly have the best business ideas, the best creative ideas, maybe figure out how to solve a creative problem or a relationship conflict when we're in the shower. It's like one of the only places where our attention hasn't been totally colonized. Same thing if you're on the walk with your dog or you're washing the dishes. It's a place for silence and it's a place for being bored, and it is so precious. It's such a simple idea, but we cannot create beautiful things if we're just consuming all the time, and yet they make it so easy to do just that. After all, why would you feel like you can make anything when everything, everywhere, all at once is being fed to you all the time? But I think the point is not necessarily the sharing. I think the point is that you are realizing something that you came up with. It's that process. Everything that comes before pressing publish or releasing or selling something that gives you all the internal fuzzies. I've also been increasingly fascinated by this idea that you very much are what you consume, and trying to curate content with that lens. I think we take for granted that the algorithm is going to curate for us, but I don't think the algorithm curates for our best interest. I think a lot of times it can be a terrifyingly honest and brutal mirror. I, for one, have had to distance myself from just watching gossip channels, why do I need that information? What is that doing for me? I mean, no hate to anyone else who consumes that kind of content. I certainly do. But when I'm trying to think about what I value and what I hope to put out in the world, I don't really feel like that sort of thing resonates. And so why am I spending my precious time on it? I'm a big fan of clicking the not interested button or the mute button, any of those buttons that allow me to have a little more control over what shows up in my feed. And it's really interesting. Like your body will tell you. It's almost like a sadness jump scare. Like I don't know if you've ever opened up an app and saw something that, I don't know, made you jealous or made you feel like, oh, I wish I would have been there, or why can't I? Something that leads you to compare. So these little delightful little buttons can very much help you have less of those. And that's made some of these spaces a little less hostile, at least for me. I think it was on the Colin and Samir podcast, but they were talking about, there's this long held belief that you are most like the 3 to 4 people who are closest to you in your real life. But nowadays, that also extends to the creators that you watch and consume content from, which makes a lot of sense to me. But with that lens, I think I'm a lot more picky about, okay, the choice is mine. Like, who do I want to curate into my life, even digitally, because the Kate bus and the whoever you are bus only has so many seats. But yeah, I'm also interested to see in the age of AI, if curation is going to become that much more important. It's really interesting to me that a lot of the chat GPTs of the world are kind of just supercharged curators. Like we are getting information from these engines that are getting information from somewhere else, but we have no idea what the criteria is behind what is given to us, or any of those tools, really. One of my jobs as a freelancer is a writer, so I'm very familiar with search engine optimization. And one thing that's really changing about Google is now, like the first half of the page, for some people who have gotten this update, is all AI curated sources. So all that Google's Gemini AI bot wants to show us are the top results, which maybe that's good news for you, depending on how you feel about that sort of thing. But it's just fascinating how technology is creating default tastemakers. And I think sometimes I find that quite threatening as an artist, because I think, as we've been shown through social media, I think a lot of times the priorities for that optimization are focused around retention, which can be really good, but it can also be just very, for lack of a better word, triggering content. But yeah, I wonder. Sometimes I feel like algorithms kind of optimized for like fast food content. Like it's really cheap and it tastes super sweet, but there's nothing of substance actually in there. Like it doesn't fill you up like a good hearty meal would. I also think a lot about how hard it is to have levity publicly and have it feel sincere. I think we've gotten to the point where it's really hard to express joy and happiness in a way that doesn't feel cheap or disingenuous, because we've been so skewed in a overstimulating, often very sad and difficult digital landscape. And I feel like I see all these themes of humor coming through in music and other art, and just there seems to be a wave of people taking themselves less seriously as sort of a rejection of the weight of all of this information. The solar eclipse was this week, and I wasn't really planning to do anything, but then on the day when it came around and I saw a bunch of people go outside, I was like getting serious FOMO. So I hurried and I rushed to get glasses, and I waited in a long line, and I was talking to people in line. And then once I got the glasses, we were all at this park. There were all these people who were focusing their day around life and catering work to life, which maybe doesn't seem super novel if you don't live in America. But in New York City, I feel like that is wild. And it was so beautiful to see just people. There were many people at the park who did not have the glasses or did not know. And just people asking strangers like, oh, do you want to take a look? Have you seen? It was just so beautiful. And it reminded me about how we used to have more of a collective monoculture, or just, you know, like these shared moments in which, regardless of where you came from, you can relate to. I feel like nature is such a uniting force because we all experience it in our different realities. And yeah, it was just a really beautiful thing to see. So shout out to the eclipse. But yeah, that's that. I didn't really have a huge point. I think I just, you know, I sense all these little themes with almost regressing, like going back to more in-person stuff. Lots of people deliberately, myself included, trying to consume less. And just this overall questioning of, is more really more? And is that what's best for us as humans? With the dawn of AI, will it at some point eat its own tail? And after being fed all this information and turning that information to even more information, are we all going to become so collectively sick of it that we just go back to spending more time with each other in person? I don't know, but I'm curious to see. This bruise, as promised, I was filming a fight scene for one of my upcoming music videos, not the one that's scheduled, but one in the future. And I accidentally got punched because my scene partner was in a huge costume. So it was really hard for him to hear. And I forgot to duck. Like, it was a hole. It's totally fine. But now I got this little battle scar, which will be hanging out with me until further notice. But I'm going to have to work on site tomorrow with clients, so I might have to break out the foundation. But anyway, such is life. I would love to hear your thoughts, hear about your eclipse experience if you have one, and also if you have any strategies for how you set digital boundaries for yourself, or maybe some ways that you felt more connected to boredom or cultivating just like real life exhales. What does that look like for you? I would love to hear. But yeah, thanks for watching. I will see you later. Bye-bye.